Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And today we've got a puzzle called Arrow Sandwich Do Not Eat by Zetamath. Zetamath's appeared on the channel a few times before, always with wonderful constructions. And our testers have assured me that this one is approachable today and mellow compared to the string of monsters I've been faced with in recent days, with more to add, or more to come I should add. Apparently there are several puzzles that have passed testing which are all very, very difficult indeed. So today ought to be some light relief. And well, if you're looking at the video length now and it's another hour video, then either I've been duped or I've been dumb. Neither of those is particularly acceptable. So I'm hoping that you're looking at something that, well, is a little bit more reasonable, but we'll see. If you enjoy the content, of course, slap that like button now. I haven't got the sound effect. Leave a kind comment or subscribe. Become a patron on Patreon. You know the drill. Get the apps. All of that's fine stuff. Now, and I'll now read the rules of the Zetamath's puzzle. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. Clues outside the grid give the sum of the digits sandwiched between the 1 and the 9 in the respective row or column. So it feels like a while since I've done a sandwich clue, or a sandwich Sudoku, I should say. How does this work? Well, let's imagine... no, it's not going to be very easy actually to see. Let's just look at this row and let's imagine that there is a 9 here and a 1 here. Then whatever was in this space here, the sandwich clue, would be telling you the sum of those digits, the digits sandwiched between the 1 and the 9. So that's how sandwich Sudoku works. And what else have we got? We've got cells along arrows, sum to the digit in that arrow's circle, and digits can repeat along arrows if allowed by the other rules. So that means those 3 squares there, you add them up, 1, 2, 3, and whatever they add to, you've got to put in that arrow's circle. So in that square there, you would put the sum of those 3, and indeed the sum of those 3. And you can repeat digits. Obviously those 3 digits can't repeat, but where the arrow sort of wiggles about a bit, you can often get repeats. So it's very possible, for example, for that square and that square to repeat. That wouldn't break the rules of Sudoku, and it would be fine in terms of the arrow rules. So if those were both 3, you could put a 2 there, an 8 there, and that would be a valid way of arranging that arrow indeed. What else have we got? We've got X and Y. You can see the sandwich clues involve X's and Y's. X and Y's need to be deduced by the solver, no surprise there, and the row labelled min is the unique lowest sandwich sum across the entire grid. Well, it's probably 0 then, but we probably can't assume that, because of course you can have a 0 sandwich clue if the 1 and the 9 are next to each other. There's no digits sandwiched between them, so the sandwich clue would be a 0. So that's probably what that is, but we don't know it for sure. Anyway, do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now, I don't know whether to start with the arrows or the sandwiches. I think I'll start with the arrows because I can at least see that this is a 3-cell arrow, and the minimum I could put on the arrow would be 1, 2 and 3. So that square there has got to be at least equal to 6. That one is much less potent because of the possibility of a repeated 1 along the arrow. So in fact this one could be a 4, as low as a 4. I'll be slightly goodliff about it and pencil mark all of the options in. That's a 3-cell arrow. That's got to be at least a 6, therefore. That one... No, this could have a repeated 1 on it. So this one is the same as this one, and can be a multitude of things. I'm not prepared to pencil mark 3s and above. I refuse to go down to that level. So can I just assume therefore that the arrows are not the place to start? I think I can. Let's have a look at the sandwich clues then. So what have we got? We've got Y appearing 3 times in 3 different rows. Not sure what that means. We've got 35 minus x. We don't know what x is though. Although we have got an x squared clue. Ah, okay. Well, there's a simple piece of logic. X is actually quite a low number then, because x, let's imagine x was 6 for a moment. That would say that this sandwich clue was 36. Well, that's not possible, because even if we space out the 1 and the 9 as far as we possibly can, we can use the secret to tell us what the maximum sandwich is. Now, the secret, of course, is the sum of the digits 1 to 9, which will appear in every correct row, column, and box of a Sudoku. If you get the Sudoku right, this column will contain all of the digits from 1 to 9. Add up those digits, you get 45. So the maximum I could ever sum between a 1 and a 9 is 45 minus 10. That's 35. So that means this cannot be 36, so x is less than 6. And that might matter. Okay, well that's going to be immediately interesting for this clue. 35 minus x, therefore, is at least equal to 30. Oh, I tell you one thing, that means x can't be 0. Because if x was 0, this would not be the unique minimum sandwich value. So x can't be 1 either, because what you cannot do, of course, is this. You can't put a 1... oh, what am I talking about? Why am I thinking 1 would be outside the sandwich? 1 would... I'm going mad! 1 can't... Well, jeepers, there's a low-flying aeroplane again. Let's do it the other way around. If x was 1, you'd have to put a 1 inside the sandwich, and the 1 would repeat. So don't do that. Don't go mad either. It won't help you solve Sudokus. At least I doubt it will. But x is not 1. X is not 0. And so x is 2, 3, 4, or 5. So x squared is 4, 9, 16, or 25. None of those ring any particular bells regarding sandwich clues. Now, let's come back to this one though. 35 minus x is... So x could be 2. So this could be 33, 32, 31, or 30. But what that does mean is that we can eliminate the possibility of some of the cells in this column from being a 1 and a 9. If you were going to try and put a 1 here, the furthest away you could put the 9 would be there. That's a 4-cell sandwich where the maximum size you could make this would be 8, 7, 6, and 5. And 8, 7, 6, and 5 add up to 26. This has to be at least 30. So what we can say is that those certainly are not 1s and 9s. Now this... Oh, bobbins, that's annoying. Right, okay, what we can't do, though, is rule out this from being a 1 or a 9, unfortunately, because this square here, if that's a 1 and that's a 9, these 5 squares now have to add up. You can reach 30. If you add to the 26 that we just thought about a 4, which you could do, you could reach 30 just, and have 2 cells outside the sandwich. So this square here is... Well, it's been a bit difficult, unfortunately. Misbehaving, and we can't make it green, and we can't make its counterpart there green. Greater than 30 here. Gosh, actually, this is good. This one is even better than that one, because this one we can highlight all of those squares. Because in this instance, it's not possible for this to be a 1, because again, we've just worked it out. The highest you can put inside a 5-cell sandwich is 30. This is definitely greater than 30, so we can add the extra greens. So this square here is not 9, therefore, which is the most minimal deduction. Okay. So the cell that I'm interested in now is this one, I think. And the only reason for being interested in this one is I can see if I put a 1 or a 9 here, then the 1 and the 9 in the box are used up, because there's got to be a 1 or a 9 in this string of digits here for the 35 minus x clue. So that, can we limit that then? 2, 3, 5. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Right. My instincts for once are in the right place. Can this square be a 1 or a 9? Gosh, that's plane's going past again. Can this be a 1 or a 9? The answer is no. Because of the 35 minus x clue, you'd have to have the other 1 or 9 in this box in those 3 squares. Now, it doesn't matter where, in fact, the 1s and 9s go. The whole point, I think, is that this little arrow here now couldn't have a 1 on it. So the minimum this domino could be is a 2-3 pair, which means the minimum this square could be would be a 5. But this is outside the sandwich, because we're hypothecating, or hypothesizing, I should say, a 1 or a 9 here. So if this is outside the sandwich, we know, because it's a greater than 30 clue, that this square has to be a maximum of 4. Let's imagine this was a 31 sandwich clue. 31 plus 1 plus 9 is 41. So this has to be a maximum of 4, but it has to be at least 5 if we put the 1 or the 9 here. That is a contradiction, and therefore that square turns green. Which gives, in fact, it gives us a digit, because this can't, we now know this is a 1 or a 9, but it's a circle for an arrow clue, so that's a 9. It can't be a 1. I can't put, half and half in there. So there's a 1 in one of those 2 squares. This could be 35, could it? Is there something that tells us it can't be that? I'm not sure. I don't think there was a rule. I don't think there's an equivalent max rule to the min rule. Right, let's have a look at column 1 then. We now know that this square is definitely outside the sandwich. That square is definitely inside the sandwich. X is... what do we know about x? Do we know any more about x than we did a couple of minutes ago? I don't think we do. X could be 5. Right, okay, well what we do know is that that can't be the 1, because we know the maximum number of cells outside the sandwich in column 1 is 2. If x is 5, we have to make the cells outside the sandwich equal 5. That would have to be a 2-digit total, so this square can never be a 1. One of those 2 is a 1. And that... it feels like that's going to affect that arrow, doesn't it? I'm not sure. Okay, so where do we look now? We've got to find somewhere else where... I mean, if this square wasn't a 1, this would have to be a 9 arrow with a 2, 3, 4 here. That would place a 9 in one of those squares, and that looks entirely reasonable. So, do we know anything about this one? We know there's a 1 in one of those 2 squares. Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Right, okay. I can do this. There can't be a 1 here. Because if there's a 1 here, what does this arrow add up to? Well, the minimum I can put on the arrow is 2, 3, 4, which will place the 9 here. Well, there's then 0 total between the 1 and the 9 in the column. Sorry, that would have to look like that, where it's got to be greater than 19. Well, last time I checked, 0 was not greater than 19, so this doesn't work, and that is very nice indeed. That means that square is not 1. This square is 1. So now this square is definitely outside the sandwich and has to be 2, 3, or 4. which means there is a 1 down here now. This 2, 3, 4 is immediately interesting because of this arrow. The only way you can have a 3-cell arrow in the same column of a Sudoku that doesn't contain a 1 is if it is 2, 3, and 4, adding up to 9. Well, this now can't be 2, 3, and 4, so it must contain a 1, which definitely feels deliberate, doesn't it? This 2, 3, 4 feels so beautiful with how that arrow's working. So now we can place 1s down there, because we can't put 1 in the circle. I was about to say we can say that this square isn't a 9, but that's not necessarily true, is it? Because I can still make a total of 9 here, just using 1 in the sum. Oh no, no, you can't do that for a different reason. You can't do that because it breaks the 19 again. We've got to make sure that the 1 and the 9 are suitably far apart, so that we can fit fit at least 20 between them. So this is not 9. Oh, this is lovely. This is not 9, therefore there's a 1 on the arrow, because 6, 7 and 8 in 3 cells always require a 1. So that 1 must go there, which means, yeah, now there's a 1 on this 9 arrow, because there can't be a 1 here because of the 35 minus x clue and the fact we've shaded it green. So there's a 1 on that arrow, which must go with an 8. And so far, this is absolutely lovely. And I'd have to say it's not been monstrous yet. Now, do we know the order here? If this is, again, it's quite interesting to just say, if this is a 1, it puts 2, 3, 4 here. You'd have to go 9. Oh, this is what I looked at earlier. 9 would go in one of those 2 squares, which is possible. Okay. What else do we know about? Do we know more about x yet? Not sure. X squared, no. 19. Well, we can rule 9 out in this column from all of those squares instantly, because we've got to keep the 9 relatively far away from the 1 wherever it lives. Can that be 9? If that's 9 and that's 1, these 4 squares would have to add up to 20. Now that's a bit suspicious as well. Let's look at this. Can this square be a 9? I think the answer's no, because I think if you put the 1 here, which is as far away as you can, in order to maximise whatever you can put into these squares, how are we going to make these 4 squares add up to 20? The answer is you can't do it, because if you make this an 8, which is the best you'll do, you'd have 7 into those 2 squares, because obviously got to deduct the 1 out of the total, so those would add up to 15. The maximum you can make that is a 4. That's 19, which is less than a number that's greater than 19. So the 9 doesn't go there, and that means the 9 is definitely, well, it's definitely down here. It can't be there, because I can't make 2 cells add up to 20. What about there? Can I make 3? No, of course I can't. Right, sorry, this is nonsense. Well, it's good nonsense. This square can't be 9, because that means those 3 squares would have to add up to 20 at least. But the maximum value you could ever make those 2 squares individually add up to would be 7. So you'd have 7, you'd have to put 13 into this square. Well, that won't work, so that's definitely not 9, which means we get a 9 in the bottom right hand corner of the grid. Now I'm immediately seeing that over there. That's very tempting. Let me just have a think about this 1 though here. I still need to put 20 in here. That can't be the 1. Can you do it if this is the 1? That's the question. Yeah, that's, well, you can't put 6, 7 and 8 into here, so you can't make these add up to 21 because that will have no fill. if you go 5, 7, 8... No, that doesn't work either. It's lovely, actually. If that's 5, 7, 8 in some order, the only digit you could realistically put here would be the 5 without breaking this total, but it still breaks because you can't do that. That will not work. This has to be positive, and therefore this has to add up to a number that it can't add up to. And that's perfect because that means that square is not 1, which means this square is 1. And that means... what does that mean? That means that 1 is in one of 4 squares in box 5. I'm not sure what that means, but let's come back to this 9 because that's quite exciting. Look, that square's not 9 anymore. That means this triple here must include a 1. These ones mean it's not there, so that's a 1. That gives us a 1 and an 8 at the top of the grid, look. The 8 bounces back over here, forces this to be 6 or 7. Now I can see there has to be a 2 on this arrow, because whether this is 6 or 7, it's going to have a 2. It's either going to be 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 4. Okay. 1 in box 5 is now in one of 2 places. I've got a feeling I'm about to get stuck again. What? Feels like this was very nice, but I can't actually see. Oh, I see. Oh, lovely. Right. Y here, which repeats 3 times in the rows, can this square be a 1? So now this is a 9. It's impossible, because this would mean, if this is a 1, we know that y would then have to equal 35, which would mean you'd have to put 1s and 9s in all of those squares where they can't go. So that's not 1, and therefore this is 1, and that's in the minimum clue. So the minimum clue is not 0, because I can't put 9 here, because that's on an arrow. But we know x could be 5, so this square needs to be yeah, this is still nice. This is still nice, because the minimum has to be lower than x, which means it has to be 4 or less. Now, the great thing about a sandwich total of 4 or less is that it's a 1-cell sandwich, because you can't put 1 and 3 inside the sandwich without repeating the 1 in the row. So this square is the sandwich square, and this square must therefore be a 9, and this square has got to be 2, 3 or 4. I think. Now, that square now. Oh! Now we know x. Now we know x, because once we got the 1 here, we know there are 2 cells outside the sandwich, which means this has to be a 30 total overall, because if it's 31, for example, you'd put 31 in the sandwich, plus 10 is 41. You'd have to put cells totaling 4 outside the sandwich, which requires a 1 and a 3 in that case, but it definitely requires a 1. So these have got to be a 2-3 pair. And we know the order, because there's definitely a 2 down here. This is so intricate, and it's so well put together. That's not 3 anymore. Oh, in fact, this is now determined, because now you can't put a 3 on the arrow, so this is 7. Good grief. So now we know x is 5. We know that the min is 2 or 4. Yeah, but the min is not the same as the max, is it? So I can't really use that to determine this square, I don't think. Right. don't know. Ah, I do know where 9 goes in column 2 by Sudoku. Look, and a little bit of arrows. You can't put 9 on an arrow. So 9 goes here. 1. Sorry, let me just have a think for a second. Let's see if I can spot something useful. These squares have to add up to at least 20, 30. These are 15 or less. I'm struggling a bit now. 9 in box 8, look, can't go on the arrow. So 9 is in one of 2 places. Yeah, there you go. 9 in box 3, can't go on the arrow. So 9 has to be in one of 2 places there. One of 2 places here. They don't quite align in the columns, look. So I don't think we know. We don't know what y is still. We just knew it wasn't 35. Oh, you can't put 1 on this arrow now. Look, we've got 1s here and here. Now, this is interesting. There now must be a repeated digit on this arrow. Because if it's 2, 3, and 4, which is the lowest it could be, it would add to 9, which is impossible. So there's a repeated digit. This square can never be repeated, because it will therefore clash with whatever was repeated will clash by the medium of Sudoku. So these 2 digits have to repeat. Let's make those purple. So given you can't put 1 on it, they've got to be 2 or 3. And look at this. There's a 2 in this column already. So this is a 3 that's repeating on the arrow. This square is now forced to be a 2, and this is forced to be an 8. I don't believe it. Oh, this is this is lovely. Now 8. You can't put 8 on this arrow without making this a double-digit number. So that's got to be 8. This is 3 cells summing to 8 that don't involve a 3, so this is 2 and 5 into those squares, which fixes that this is a 3 or a 4. There's got to be a 2 in one of those squares by Sudoku, a 5 in one of these squares by Sudoku. But this column needs a 5 in it, so that's going to go there, and it needs a 6 in it, that's going to go there. Now we just need 4 and 7 in box 1, which we might be able to do, but I can't see how. Oh, look. This square now has a 3 or a 4 as an option. So this 8 total can't be 1, 3, 4 and must be 1, 2, 5. So both the 8 totals running off this 8 circle are 1, 2, 5 totals. Oh, does that matter for those 2 squares then? Hang on, let's just think about this now. So now we need these 4 squares to add up to at least 20. That means these have to add up to at least 30. Oh, yeah, look, these 2 have to add up to at least 13 without using 8 and 9. Well, the best you'll do is 13 exactly. So we now know this does add up to 20, which means these squares have to add up to, yeah, well, we know that. We know by Sudoku this is a 3, 4 pair. But we can't resolve that 3, 4 pair, I don't think. And we need 6s and 7s into these squares. So these are 6, 7s and 9s. That's not 9. Okay. Now let's take stock and see what we can do next. We can... I feel like I know quite a lot about... it would be very useful if I knew this arrow here didn't have a 1 on it. Is there a way of showing that? I can see I can't put 1s into those squares, but I think this can be a 1. Probably is a 1, in fact. It looks like it works out rather nicely. Okay, that doesn't look good. Oh, do we know what... Yes, we know x is 5 now. Oh, we must be able to do something with that, can we? The answer is apparently no. I don't seem to know much about column 5 at all. What about this one then? X... This is 25, the sandwich total in column 7. At least I know roughly where the 1 is. Oh yeah, this is interesting actually. Sorry, I should have looked at this earlier, I think. That can't be a 1. At least I don't think it can. No, it can't be a 1, because if this is a 1, where on earth in this column am I going to put the 9? Now I've got to make sure I can fit a 25 sandwich in. So let's make this a 1 and see whether that's possible. What's the maximum I can put in this arrow, in this circle here? That can be an 8, it can't be a 9. So I can put 8 here, which means this domino adds to 8. So that the maximum those squares add up to is 16. Well, I can't even put 9 here, but even if I could, that would still require a 9 into this square, and you can't put 9 inside a sandwich. So there's simply no way of putting 9 anywhere in this column other than there. That is the 9, and therefore this is not the 1, because if this was the 1, that would imply that 25 was equal to 35, which it isn't. So this is the 1. Now that is going to affect this arrow. And it's also telling me that these two squares sum up to 10, because we've got 25 inside the sandwich plus 9 plus 1, 35. Using the secret, we know those two add up to 10. We know that they don't use 1 and 9, or 6 and 7. These are a 2-8 pair. But we don't know... Oh, we do know the order. We do know the order because we can use the power of arrows. This is a 2-8 pair. I can't put 2 in there because I can't put 1 above it. So that must be 8, that must be 2. Which means that must be 7. That means this is 6. Therefore this is 7. This 2 is fixing the 2 and the 5. Look, those two squares have got to be 3 and 4, which we can place. I suspect I've got to look at this arrow, but let me just see if there's any more Sudoku we can do. Those squares are 6, 8 and 9. Those squares are 3, 4 and 5. That's not 3. Okay. So these two squares add up to 8 without using 1. So this is 2, 6 or 3, 5. And this square... Well, let's think about this arrow now. If I could, I need to eliminate 9 from here really, because at the moment this can be 2, 3, 4. Okay. Don't see how to do that. So we can... What do we do now? That's... Maybe I have to do more Sudoku. What have I got in this box? I've got to place 5, 6 and 8 in here. Is there a good way of doing that? Not that I can see. What about... What about... Where am I meant to look now? I don't know. Sorry about this. 3s, 4s, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5 and 6. there something I can do with y now? I think y is the only thing I've not really studied. Those three squares are from 3, 4, 5 and 6. So y, depending on what this square is, we're actually going to know the value of y, aren't we? So if this is 3, this would be 15. So y would be 15. If this is 4, y would be 14. So y is 14 or 15. Oh. Yes, let's have a look at this row, therefore. Now, the first thing I can see is it's not possible for the 9 to be in any of those three squares, because they'll be too close to the 1, given that y is 14 or 15. So the 9, there's only one place for a 9 in this row, and that is there. Now that might be helpful. Oh, it's lovely. It's lovely, because the 9 now has to go here in box 5 by Sudoku. It's not there. Therefore, the 9 goes here, here. We can get rid of a couple of pencil mark 9s. And that's profound for the arrow. Good grief. Now, let's come back to this arrow, which cannot have a 1 on it. And now can't be 2, 3, 4, because that would add up to 9, which it can't be. So there must be a repeated digit on it, because otherwise it breaks. And where is the repeated digit? It's got to be in those two squares. So these two squares are either a pair of 2s or a pair of 3s. Because they can't be 2 4s, otherwise it's going to add up to 9 again. So these are a 2 or a 3, and we can not tell which order they're in. What's this square then? Oh, so if this is double 2, that would have to be a 3, and that would add up to 7. So the options for this square are 7 or 8. Now, what do we do next? I can place the 1, can't I, using the power of y? Because if this is the 1, those two squares can't add up to 14 or 15. So that's not 1. This is 1. That's 1. Now, what next? I do something with these squares now. Y is 14 or 15, so if this is a 2, these are either adding up to 12 or 13. So if it was 12, this would have to be 7 or 8. In fact, it would have to be 8. If it's 13, it would also have to be 8. Is this always 8? I think it is. Let's just double check that logic. So we don't know what y is, but we do know it's 14 or 15. So these are 12 or 13. 12, you can't use the 7. This would be an 8. 13, you can't use the 9, so this would have to be a 5. So this is always 8. This is 7, therefore. Now we can't double the 3, or that will break. We have to double the 2 with a 3 here. That gives us a 2 and a 5. Now this 8 arrow is not 2, 6, it's 3, 5. This 2 is giving us a 2 up here by the power of Sudoku. Those squares there are 4 and 6, I think, which I don't think we can resolve. This 2, though, is lovely. That gives us a 2 and a 4 there. I feel like I've done most of the 2s in the grid. I have done all of the 2s. I've done all of the 1s, 3s, therefore. Where are the 3s? I have not done all of the 3s. And maybe I can't, actually. 3, 4, 6. This square is a 5 by Sudoku. I still don't know what y is. I don't think I do. This square is 3, 4 or 7. 3, 5 here means this square is a 4, 5 and 3. That means that's a 6 and that's a 4. That means that's a 6 and that's a 7. Now this column is quite handy, isn't it? We can put 7 in there. That means we've got to put 7 in one of these two squares. Ah, look, now I know what y is. Y has turned out, y is 15. Right, so now coming back up here, that means I need to leave 3 out of the sum. Good. So we get a 4, 6 pair here. This 4 gives me a 7 over here and a 4 here. That square's now a 3. That fixes my 3 and 5. Now what do I need in here? I need 7. Okay. It must be close to being done now. These two squares, we can now... These have to add up to 11, don't they? Because we know the 3 of them together add up to 15. We've got a 4 here. So this is a 5, 6 pair, and I can do it. 5 and 6 go in. 6 and 4 go in. This is a 4, 8 pair, which we can obviously do. 8, 4, 8, 6. We just fill that square in theory. That's got to be a 5. That's got to be a 5. That's a 6. That's an 8. There must be an 8 here. That gives us a 7 as well. And we need 4 and 6, which we can do like that. And that is a very beautiful puzzle finished. Very nice indeed, Zeta Math. Incredibly clever. And what I loved about it was how linear it felt. So each deduction, you know, definitely seemed to lead on very naturally to the next. And, you know, lots of these little clever pieces of logic scattered throughout it. Very, very enjoyable. Let me know in the comments how you got on, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.